afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our panel on bioenergy in Ukraine. Given the discussions we've had and we'll be having these 3 days on energy, climate change, regional development, and agriculture, it seems only fitting that we also have a discussion about bioenergy sector at the intersection of all these issues. Moderating tonight's session will be Dr. Georgi Gilatucha. He is the chairman of the board of the Bioenergy Association of Ukraine, an organization that unites businesses and experts for sustainable bioenergy development in Ukraine. Mr. Gilatucha has served as director of the Scientific Engineering Center Biomass since 1998. He has also been head of the Bioenergy Department of the Institute of Engineering Thermophysics of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine since 2003. He graduated from the Moscow State Technical University and recently defended his PhD dissertation on conversion of renewable energy. Dr. Georgi, I pass it over to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Catherine. And I'm sending my greetings to all our listeners in the United States and in Ukraine. I would like to thank the organizers of this event for preparing a panel on bioenergy. We, the experts at this roundtable, share the understanding that bioenergy is the lead source of all renewable sources because it currently has the biggest portion of renewable energy production in Ukraine and in other countries. And in addition to electricity, it also allows to produce heat, also fuel for transportation, and it has the biggest potential among other renewable energy sources for new jobs and for economy decarbonization. We have 4 experts in this panel. Among them is one who represents the association, that's myself. Also those who represent 2 leading companies on the bioenergy market, that's Mr. Dombrovsky and Mr. Savchuk. Also representative of our government agency for energy efficiency, Mr. Shafarenko. So we will take about 12 minutes each for the presentation, and then we will leave a few minutes, around 10 minutes at the end, for a short discussion. So with your permission, I will start by showing my presentation, and this will launch our panel. I hope you can see my screen. My slides are in English, and I will speak with interpretation. So our association was created about 8 years ago, and that includes close to 30 companies, including those who are featured in this panel. Bioenergy sphere is developing actively in Ukraine. The share of energy from bioenergy has grown more than 3 times over these 8 years, and the average rate of growth was 16% per year. Currently there is 3.3 million tons of oil equivalent, or in natural gas equivalent, that's over 4 billion cubic meters substitution. There's 53 biogas power projects, and the projects that produce bioenergy from biomass, electric energy from biomass, is 18. The biggest projects for biomass, as you can see, have 16 of megawatts. On biogas, it can be 15, 12, 7.5 megawatt of electricity. There are basically 3 mechanisms in Ukraine that provide support for bioenergy. One is so-called green tariff for biomass and biogas as sources, and that's 12.3 euro cents without VAT. It's installed until the end of 2029, but those projects have to be started before the year 2023. Second mechanism, which is envisaged by laws but it hasn't been launched, is auctions on state support for power production. Those auctions are voluntary for bioenergy projects before January 1st, 2023, but after that they have to become mandatory. Laws already required to have such auctions in 2021, but they haven't started yet, and we look forward to them starting as soon as possible. There is also a third mechanism in regard to heat production. Ukraine has so-called incentive tariff for heat production from renewable sources. It comprises 0.9 of gas-based heat tariff. It's been implemented since 2017. It has no time limit for the future. And the outlooks for our sector are positive as well. Until 2035, these forecasts have been established by our association. The goal for 2013 is to reach 11 million tons of oil substitution. Now we are at about 4 million tons, as I said. Beyond that, you can look at our own forecasts. You can see them, view them at this link. And by 2015, we anticipate to achieve 20 million tons of oil substitution. And this chart can give you a sense of the economy of this activity. It puts together different sources, different ways like production of oil, of electricity from straw, generation from biomass, projects on biogas and bioethanol. All these projects, one way or another, have positive economic indicators. They are acceptable for business in terms of the time that it takes them to pay back. And I would like to go into more detail on biomethane potential in Ukraine. We believe this has great future for Ukraine. Biomethane as a resource, we believe Ukraine can produce up to 8 billion cubic meters of natural gas, of this gas in Ukraine. Just a week ago, there was a new legislative bill registered in Ukraine about biomethane production. It uses the language biomethane and requires to create a biomethane register. So when that gas is produced with a note from the register, that will confirm its origin. So when this law is implemented, Ukraine will have good prospects for biomethane production for countries of the European Union. We also have great faith into combining the advantages of biomethane and so-called green hydrogen. The concept which our association promotes all the time is to build biomethane plants next to green hydrogen production facilities, and by using the CO2, which is a byproduct of biomethane production, you can combine it with hydrogen in this methanization reaction that you see on the screen, and that will produce additional synthetic methane, which can be supplied into existing natural gas networks. This approach has the advantage that we will will use the existing gas networks, which uses methane, and we don't need to create or rebuild any additional equipment, create additional boilers or turbines. Biomethane will work just like natural gas. In addition, biomethane's heat production capacity is almost 3 times over hydrogen capacity. So transporting methane for long distances will be easier than using hydrogen for this. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention. So I stop my screen, and I would like to invite Mr. Dombrovsky as our next presenter. Oh, thank you very much. I too would like to thank the organizers of this international conference. I'm thankful for this opportunity to have a serious discussion and to make our presentations. I would like to remind you that when we speak about Ukraine's energy policy, we talk about issues of energy security and energy independence. For Ukraine, each year we evaluate the cost of Ukraine's energy independence is about $15 billion. That's how much Ukraine spends to import energy resources from external markets. Let us not specify which countries those are, but this is a huge amount of money. Imagine if we did not have to spend that $15 billion for buying energy. Imagine how much economic benefit it would be if we kept that money inside the country. So I would like to introduce my company, MHP. It's a public joint stock company which is featured at the London stock market. We have over 15,000 employees. I think we are one of the biggest manufacturers of not only energy but also chicken meat, and we contribute to issues of food security in Ukraine. I want to make a footnote. Whenever we speak about energy, we always have to find a balance between food safety and food security and energy security. There's one other aspect of this theme for us now is environmental security, which gives a solution to this equation, because in order for us to go forward quickly, we need to harmonize issues of food security and energy security as well as environmental security. So I would like to point out that for several years now we've been working in the model of so-called circular economy, which means a waste-free production, and its key element is the implementation of our bioenergy projects. We built these facilities in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast and in Vinnytsia Oblast. The first facility has been in use for almost 7 years now. It's a biogas plant for 5.5 megawatt that processes manure from chicken. We consume that power for our needs. The other project is world's biggest biogas project in the world. That's 12 megawatts is the first step of this facility. The second step will be another 12 megawatts, also processing chicken manure. And there have been different political discussions today, but I would like to say if we had not any problems over the last 2 years in calculating green energy tariffs, I think by then we would have finished the second part of this construction project. These two biogas projects demonstrate high effectiveness and high efficiency. They allow to show that circular circular economics is very productive. And Mr. Gelitu has mentioned new directions and new trends in bioenergy. We have started serious work on those together with our European and American partners on biomethane and green hydrogen. We believe that the experience we have and the results we have produced will allow us to move very quickly ahead, and we are inviting our international partners to join us. We also work very seriously on issues of producing CO2 and the use of that product for internal needs of our holding. I mean use of cryogenic technologies that use CO2. I would like to say that there are big opportunities here. We can produce approximately 40 million of cubic meters per year, and the waste that we have in our vertical integration is about 150 million cubic meters of biogas per year. The second issue on which I would like to speak is our new project that we are now implementing jointly with a partner in the United States. Company is Marquis Energy. We would like to build a state-of-the-art facility in Ukraine to produce high-protein chicken feed. That way we would resolve the issues of food security, and a byproduct of that facility would be bioethanol. And I'm sure that the United States is a strategic global partner, or actually global leader in bioethanol technologies. They cover about 50% of global markets, so jointly with Marquis Energy, who owns two similar facilities, they produce about 800,000 bioethanol per year. That's world's biggest production of high-protein chicken feed and bioethanol, as well as other products. The objective we set for ourselves is to build first a carbon-neutral production facility, which will be at least carbon neutral, or maybe even carbon negative. It will use no antibiotics and will be 100% consuming just renewable energy, though that kind of energy which we know how to produce and have the experience with at this time. With our American partners, we are doing serious work on development of integration and promotion of those technologies to new products, which we expect to be in use in the next few years. We believe that the development of bioethanol production and the use of bioethanol jointly with use of food products is a unique kind of integration which will allow to resolve very serious environmental problems. First of all, in regard to cars, automobiles, because according to international forecasts, we will not likely to be able to switch totally to electric cars, but and we will not. So internal combustion engine will be with us for some foreseeable time in the future, and there'll be new challenges in that regard. This is why bioethanol is a product which is not only a renewable energy resource, it also is a powerful environmentally clean resource. We can look at what's happened in California over the last 15 years, where consumption of bioethanol was the biggest in car fuel, and how much better the environmental indicators have become. So I think this is a model for us to follow and to study, and we could launch this in Ukraine and elsewhere in Europe. I would like to complete by saying that practically all participants of our discussion, we all are members of the Bioenergy Association that Mr. Geletuha leads. He is our moderator today, but at the same time there have been other associations, our participants in the association that I represent. So Mr. Savchuk, our next speaker, as well as Mr. Geletuha, that is the platform that brings together the biggest number of participants of renewable energy in Ukraine, and our objective is to make sure that all our energy that we consume is not only renewable but also clean and reducing CO2 pollution. I would like to point out that we have a broad spectrum of international contacts. Last year we joined a global bioenergy partnership, which is an international association, and we invite others to join and work with us. I want to emphasize that Ukraine has strong and high capacity companies, and development of new bioenergy technologies is the path towards greater security and a better economy for Ukraine. So we invite everyone to join us. Thank you. Thank you, Alexander. And now I would like to invite our next speaker, that's Sergei Savchuk. He, at this time, is the director of Clear Energy Company, but for the last 5 years he had been the head of State Agency for Energy Security and Efficiency.
Доброго дня, чути мене?
Чути.
Так. Okay. If you don't mind, I will try to show our presentation in English. Okay. One moment, please. Okay. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Clear Energy Group of companies is one of the leading in Ukraine in renewable energy projects and waste management. Clear Energy Group has been actively working on the implementation of renewable and energy efficiency projects since 2015 on biomass, biogas, wind, solar energy projects and energy efficiency during heat production. In a short period, 19 biogas and biomass projects were implemented in different regions of Ukraine with total electric capacity of 20 megawatt. Annual electricity production is up to 100 million kilowatt hours annually. Million kilowatt hours annually. The number of employees increased from 5 to more than 600 people. Yes. Half of whom are employed in the field of renewable energy and the other in the waste management field. Clear Energy invested, built, put into operation, and now operates bio-cogeneration plant on biomass with installed capacity of 4 megawatt in Chernihiv region. The first biomass cogeneration plant in Ukraine, gasifiers. We produce the so-called wood gas, which we use to produce clean electricity and heat. The cogeneration, the biomass cogeneration plant for gasification of fuel chips has capacity of 0.5 megawatt of electricity and additional 1 megawatt of heat. We are the market leaders in the landfills degassation. 14 stations have been built in the largest cities of Ukraine with a total capacity of 16 megawatt. Cities where the gas stations are located: Chernihiv, Kharkiv, Kryvyi Rih, Ivano-Frankivsk, Lutsk, Khmelnytsky, Kremenchuk, Poltava, Kherson, Bila Tserkva, Dnipro, Odessa, Ternopil. These projects were implemented in a very short time, not exceeding 4 months for each facility. We manage and provide waste collection, transportation, burial services to some landfills in Ukraine, such as in Odessa and Ternopil. Taking into account Clear Energy's vast experience, we have strong intention for further development of renewable energy projects. Clear Energy has successfully conducted its financial audit with world-renowned experts from BDO. Moreover, Clear Energy has passed a legal audit by Radcliffe and Partners. Clear Energy is ready for fruitful and transparent partnership. First, I want to emphasize on biomass projects' potential. The government's National Renewable Energy Action Plan for the period up to 2020 plan to have installed capacity of all renewable energy at the end of 2020 up to 12,000 megawatt installed capacity, which was not actually achieved. You can see it here. According to the National Plan 2020, the ratio of solar energy production and biomass energy should be close to 2:1. Yes. At the beginning of 21, this ratio is about 30:1. 30 to 1. Yes, thank you. It is obvious that biomass power plant has vast capacity for the development and have increased importance for Ukraine due to its energy balancing nature. So, clean energy plants, sorry? Okay. So Clear Energy plans to launch for 4 projects in the regions in Ukraine with high resource potential for biomass: Zhytomyr and Chernihiv region. The total installed capacity of the facilities will amount to 36 megawatt of electricity. So, okay. So, and additional 52 megawatt of heat. The potential investment in environmental projects is about 80 million euros. 80 million euros. 80. Yes, million euros. Yes. The average payback period for projects is 3.6 years. 3.6 years. We plan to launch projects and connect them to the network during 2022. For biomass projects, we are subject to the feed-in tariff. . Feed-in tariff. Зелений тариф. And after 2022, we will we'll have an opportunity to sell our electricity with power purchase agreement up to 20 years after the auction. Yes, it is the second option. The maximum tariff rate for biomass projects on the auction equal 12 euro cents per kilowatt hour. 12 euro cents per 1 kilowatt hour. Yes. And as for the bioethanol production potential, one of the prioritized sectors for clear energy growth is the development of bioethanol production facilities in Ukraine. Resource base in Ukraine for bioethanol production. The area under corn occupies around 5 million hectares. The yield, the annual yield equal to 40 million tons. Ukraine has foreign markets for bioethanol, in particular European market. The duty-free export quota for selling bioethanol from Ukraine equal has 100,000 tons annually. 100,000 tons annually, yes. Last year, Ukraine fulfilled only 25,000 tons. Due to constant unfulfillment of the quota, clean energy sees high potential for export. Clear Energy. Можна не перекладати, наша компанія так називається. Clear Energy. Yes. And as for the Ukrainian market, Ukrainian transport fuel market is highly dependent on foreign markets. More than 60% of domestic gasoline consumption and about 90% of diesel are met through imports. That's why we have additional potential of 100,000 tons of bioethanol production in a market. The company, based on commercial proposal, the plant will produce 30,000 tons of bioethanol annually, while consuming 80,000 tons of corn. Additional byproducts will be DDGS, annually 30,000 tons. Liquefied CO2, and corn oil. 75% of the revenue will be obtained from bioethanol. The payback period of this plant equal to 3.5 years. So, dear colleagues, thank you for your attention, and I would summarize. Ukraine now is a huge hub for energy efficiency and renewable energy development. Sustainable biomass projects in Ukraine are not only enhancing the environmental protection, but also so attractive profitability. Clear Energy is open for collaboration and partnership in this fast emerging market to develop successful biomass projects and achieve fruitful results. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Mr. Yuri Shafarenko to speak next. He is Deputy Chief of State Agency for Energy Efficiency and Energy Conservation. You're welcome, sir. Good afternoon, dear friends, dear participants, and I'm glad to greet all my fellow co-speakers. I would like to thank also for the invitation to speak at this important conference. In my presentation, I will briefly speak about government policy on this sphere and what has been accomplished. Most of all, I'd like to say that the biggest accomplishments were made on energy efficiency and green energy between 2014 and 2019. So that's what I'm going to show on my slides. We can see your slides now. Thank you. So I will briefly speak about Ukraine's government policy and the accomplishments that have been made and our future steps in regard to bioenergy specifically. Speaking of international plans, I suppose you all know that the world is trying to accomplish complete decarbonization, and these are the landmarks or the time marks for the European Union. By 2013, the EU expects to reduce CO2 emissions by 1/2, and that will require €1 trillion. As for Ukraine, Ukraine is an energy-dependent nation, and Sergei was speaking about it. We import a lot of oil and carbon products, as well as coal. In 2020, we imported $7.5 billion worth of oil, gas, and coal. So, despite the fact that we have our own internal resources which could substitute for oil and gas, we could partly substitute oil with bioethanol, as my colleagues mentioned, as well as other sources of bioenergy. In regard to plans that had been adopted in 2014, the goal was to achieve 11% of renewable energy by this time, and on some components we achieved that. We exceeded that, but in transport and bioenergy for heating, we are slightly behind. For heating and cooling, in 2020 we will achieve not more than 10%. On transportation, we see, in fact, that we are behind on those indicators, which we will know precisely by the end of the year when government statistics gets published for 2020. In regard to other plans, that currently are at work. We have an energy strategy with the goal of achieving 25% of renewable sources by 2035, and you can see how that is going to break down between different components, including biomass. We need to be able to produce about 3 gigawatts from biomass by then. And here you see how much was built specifically. There was a breakthrough between 2018 and 2019 because those new rules and regulations that had been started in 2014, they became workable, became effective, and you can see that Ukraine has built close to 9 million megawatts of renewable sources production facilities. That includes mostly solar and some mostly biogas or biomass. Together they make up 210 megawatts, but it should have been close to 1 gigawatt by now, because we need to achieve 3 gigawatts by 2035. So Ukraine, it's a topical issue for Ukraine, how to develop bioenergy production. And Ukraine is an agricultural nation. It has the necessary potential. Bioenergy projects are foreseeable in terms of amounts of energy production, unlike wind and solar that require additional investment for balancing. Here you can also see how renewable energy was developed in homes. They invested close to 640 million euros for solar panels on their roofs, and they consume that energy and sell the balance into the grid. Their total power capacity is 835 megawatts today. As for future incentives that should be in place since starting from 2020, as envisaged in the law adopted in 2019, power over 1 megawatt goes to auctions, solar for wind over 5 megawatts, and my colleague mentioned that this is not mandatory until 2023, but then it will become mandatory to take part in auctions. The quotas that Ministry of Energy has already published, but they have not actually submitted this to the Cabinet of Ministers for official approval, so that those auctions could start and show the actual price for a kilowatt of energy produced from different sources. We can see in this slide, wind would be 150, 155 for solar, but these are proposals from the Ministry of Energy. Our proposals were a little different because we believe that Ukraine needs to develop bioenergy projects more strongly, because we see a distortion towards solar and biomass projects. Here you see how Ukraine is dependent on gas imports. We see that in 2020 Ukraine consumed in different sectors such as public buildings and housing about 28 billion cubic meters. Over half of that was imported, almost 16 billion. On the right, you can see the potential for substitution of that gas with various bioenergy projects. In part, if you look at energy crops That would be an equivalent of about 20 billion of cubic meters of gas per year. That's the potential for biomethane, almost 8 billion cubic meters, and for byproducts of agricultural products, close to 10. Total, that makes 37, and even half of that would allow us to totally substitute the import of expensive natural gas. The dynamics of reduction from 2019 to 2020, but this reduction took place mostly owing to efforts of residents. But if you look at communal heating facilities, in fact, they even increase their consumption. This is why we need to develop bioenergy in communal energy production, where expensive gas needs to be substituted. Compared to previous years, 2014 to 2019, close to 7 billion cubic meters were substituted, owing to the new facilities constructed and owing to other energy conservation efforts. As for the new projects and practices we developed for bioenergy development, there is a number of legislative bills that have been proposed. To speak in more detail, one is about the market of solid biofuel. You can see this market has certain problems as to their pricing, their quality, their availability for a potential investor. This is why we used the Lithuanian platform as a model. It has shown positive results since 2012, and now this platform serves as the basis for over 90% of contracts on solid biofuel. As for energy crops cultivation, that they also allow to produce new jobs and substitute natural gas. They allow also to recultivate those land parcels which are not suitable for agriculture. Ukraine has over 4 million hectares of such land, which could be put into effective use, produce new jobs, and currently Ukraine has about 6,000 of hectares where energy producing crops are grown, such as poplars, birches, and others. Our colleague mentioned that biomethane is an important component of policy, and there is a new draft law on this. I want to emphasize that biomethane is a universal product that totally matches in its chemical capacity and physical capacities, is equal to or adequate to natural gas, methane. So this gas can step in for domestic consumption and export. Bioethanol is another topical issue, and there is a legislative draft that will allow to substitute import of oil and oil products. That's biggest, most costly part of our imports, and these new regulations will allow to spend 5 or 10% less on the import of oil and oil products. It is also important to relieve CO2 production from value-added tax. CO2 is a neutral biofuel. It burns and produces CO2, but it removes CO2 while it's being produced. So overall balance is zero, and this is important, which is why there's a draft law suggesting to relieve this production from the tax. Previously, this tax was not big, but now it's been increased about 20 times, and that is sensitive. If they're going to increase it further, That will be a big burden for the producers and can be an obstacle for development of renewable energy on biomass. So this new proposed regulation will allow to facilitate new investments. There are other issues where renewable energy is encouraged to be developed. The plan is to achieve 100% of renewable energy in our energy balance and reduce CO2 towards zero. This net energy metering is the concept that will allow companies to install meters on their roofs, and if they produce energy for their own needs and only plug into the grid if they need additional amount, or if they send some power to the grid if you produce more than consume. These are new ideas that have been put into legislative drafts, and those will soon be published. There's another aspect or issue, guarantee of energy origin. Europe is implementing appropriate tax for production of energy with a so-called carbon trace. If you make production without such a carbon trace, then you will be free from that tax, but you must present an energy origin certificate. So Ukrainian energy will need those certificates to make those products capable to compete. Coca-Cola and some others in Ukraine are saying they are ready to switch to 100% renewable energy, and they will need those certificates of origin as well. Another important direction that Ukraine has not been working very actively on so far, that's hydrogen use. We know hydrogen is potentially a very universal fuel for heating, for electricity, for transportation, and that type of fuel will not depend on climate peculiarities. Hydrogen also allows to scale renewable energy production even in bigger amounts than needed, because we can convert electricity into hydrogen, etc., and it can be used in heating generation and in transport systems. So we know that Germany has recognized Ukraine as a strategic partner on this. I remember back in 2019, in fact, a group of us were visiting an exhibition, a fair in Germany, in Hanover, on hydrogen technologies. At that time, we were able to understand that this is a serious future, and it will allow not just Ukraine, but the world at large to switch or approach 100% renewable energy sources. This slide shows some of the cases. I am coming to an end. This is really my last slide. Some case studies of success. In Kamenets-Podilsky, we have a new boiler system installed. It's Europe's third biggest with that technology. Then Clear Energy facility that was mentioned before, that's MHP in Vinica. They produce biogas, and they also Celix Energy. They grow energy crops. Finally, this is a map that we developed. It features 160 projects that are in progress, and another 220 that need investment of 5 billion euros. I invite all potential investors to come use this map and study those opportunities. Thank you for your attention. Thank you Mr. Shafarenko. We did not have questions in the chat, so I would like to ask one question for each of the speakers, and please provide your answer very concisely. What are the 3 steps which, in your opinion, Ukraine needs to make to speed up development of bioenergy? Let's start with Yuri. I think these are very simple steps. Number 1, we need to have that legislation adopted that was discussed here. Number 2 is we need to implement those laws into regulations so that these new rules will start working. And number 3 is appropriate investment innovation climate, which was created several years ago for renewable energy. That will allow us to make a boost, give boost to bioenergy technologies. For me, bioenergy is a synergetic key. I emphasize synergetic key that brings together 3 security spheres: food security, energy security, and environmental security for Ukraine. That's a synergy that allows to resolve all those 3 issues. That's what we will do by using bioenergy. Thank you. I believe that what we need, first of all, is transparent laws, and transparent laws that are maintained, that are observed, enforced. In the previous years, those laws were developed. And speaking of electricity production from renewable sources, the law envisaged auctions that should already be taking place. So until those auctions are implemented, or at least a schedule for those auctions has been adopted, until then, no investor, no international financial agency will not provide funding for those projects, because we don't know when the auctions will become a reality. Speaking of other alternative fuels, such as alternative liquid sources, we too need to take part in adoption of laws. Drafts of those laws were developed in the previous Supreme Rada with Mr. Dombrovsky's participation. Today's Cabinet of Ministers should have said that this legislative bill is a priority. That would be our answer to alternatives of electricity production and alternative substitutes for fuels such as diesel and gas. Those are the priorities. Thank you. What would you say, sir? It's very hard for me to add anything to what my previous colleagues have said. But yes, indeed, new legislative initiatives need to be adopted. We know that over the last few years, the legislative initiatives we proposed used to be adopted much faster. Yes, we do need the auctions, but we also need a general strategy for bioenergy development. There is a draft, we are still working on it, and that will be important for our future decisions in this sphere. Another important component is public awareness efforts. I attended public hearings that Clear Energy company was holding when they wanted to build a bioenergy project in one city, and the local residents were not well informed, and they believed that someone else will pay for their natural gas and they will get it cheaply. And so it has to be explained to the public. Everyone needs to understand, not just us, the specialists, government officials, as central government and local government, and residents themselves need to understand that it is important to switch to clean energy and become energy independent. until we achieve that, we will always have problems. Thank you, Mr. Yuri. On my part, I would like to also point out three steps. I think we need to develop a new energy efficiency strategy for Ukraine until the year 2050, with an emphasis on green energy and transition to alternative sources, including bioenergy. Number two, I totally agree with Mr. Savchuk. Auctions need to be launched as soon as possible. Number three, I believe it is equally important to emphasize auctions for energy maneuvering and energy storage. Without that, we will not be able to develop renewable energy. I would like to thank all my colleagues, and now I want to recognize Ms. Nadia, the chief of this conference.
Thank you. Yes, so much more to discuss. A couple of just announcements and comments. Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur will be joining us at 2:40, which is 9:40 Ukraine time. Ukraine has no better friend in regards to energy, agriculture, and so many other things. She is also chairing the House Appropriations Committee on Energy and Water Development. So she has quite a role to play in whatever kind of assistance we might be giving to Ukraine. I just want to comment that the previous sessions on energy and agriculture raised some of the similar issues that you have raised. And I believe that this conference is not about just getting together and talking. I think we want to have some results, action items to follow out of these various sessions. And I propose that we have a session in the future where we bring together these various sectors, because you have things in common, so that there could be a comprehensive sort of approach, particularly as it relates to what kind of assistance we in the US or the West can give. So thank you very much. Biotechnology is the most important project initiative of the foundation, due to the very generous support of a sponsor, multi-year, multi-million, Irene Joseph. So thank you for all your work. Thank you, Kristina Redko. She's our director for the Biotech Initiative in Ukraine. And we will be talking soon. Thank you. До побачення, добраніч, так?
Дякуємо вам також.